Good evening, everybody. I am Naganathan Iyer, a final year BLB honors student at Shastra University, and it is my pleasure to welcome you all to the 18th edition of the CUB Shri Narayanan Memorial Lecture. And firstly, I would request everyone to rise for the invocation song. We have all gathered here to be a part of a thought-provoking and highly intellectual lecture delivered by a true expert in the field. I now would like to invite Dr. S. Subramanian, the Vice Chancellor of Shastra University, to deliver the welcome address.
Very distinguished speaker for the 18th CUB Shri V. Narayanan Memorial Lecture, Mr. B.V.R. Subramaniam, the CEO of Niti Aayog, my good friend, CEO and MD of the City Union Bank, Dr. Kamakodi, revered Chairman of Shastra, the present and former Chairman of City Union Bank, Directors of the City Union Bank, senior executives from the bank, my faculty colleagues, student friends, and other special invitees, a very good evening, and I am extremely happy to welcome all of you on behalf of Shastra and City Union Bank for this annual lecture series that we host in memory of one of the most outstanding bankers from the Thanjavur district. A banker who is responsible for the success of many individuals and institutions, who needs to be celebrated and cerebrated at times to learn how banking can be done with a human touch that is responsible for the success of many enterprises, and predominantly small and medium enterprises, whose success has been because of the type of banking relationship that the City Union Bank has nurtured through the visionary guidance of its longest serving chairman, Shri V. Narayanan. And it is in his memory that we organize this lecture every year not only because Shastra has been a large beneficiary, because the growth of Shastra is synonymous with the growth of City Union Bank, which of course grew well, and it's a 100-plus-year-old bank. But much of the generational growth that it had with the technology and other modern instrumentalities coincided with the institution as it was founded in 1984 as an engineering institution, and right from day one, the relationship between the institution and the bank has been more a kind of a family relationship that ensured that both the organizations successfully evolve its roadmap as they grow in future. And that's the special relationship that we share with the bank, and that is why we decided that every year we will organize this lecture. Not only as a procedural practice that we organize this lecture, it is also a practice that we invite some of the best minds to come and deliver the lecture. The previous editions have seen chairpersons of the Economic Advisory Council, deputy governors of the Reserve Bank, public intellectuals, corporate heads, distinguished bureaucrats delivering the memorial lecture in different topics of contemporary interest at that point of time. And continuing the same tradition of inviting the best minds, we have today amidst us Mr. B.V.R. Subramaniam, the CEO of Niti Aayog, to deliver the 18th V. Narayanan Memorial Lecture. The speaker for this evening is very distinguished, a very decorated bureaucrat who has a lot of success stories both in India and abroad. His contribution to the growth of different state governments, particularly Chhattisgarh, and his role in developing the newly formed Jammu and Kashmir, and of course his brief stint in World Bank, and currently as the CEO of Niti Aayog, will bring to this evening's lecture a comedy of different dimensions of how individuals and institutions need to think when they have to progress. And that is why we are very privileged, sir, to have you amidst us this evening. In fact, I should say that I have been constantly bothering his office to get his date, and very graciously he consented to be with us despite his busy schedule. And that's not just, a usual term that we use in many of these welcome addresses and vote of thanks. I really mean it, because the role that he occupies today is very significant. I can recall one of my friends who said that, the first draft of the 12th five-year plan, when it used to be there, was almost similar to the 12th draft of the first five-year plan. Nothing really changed. It started with problems. But every country will have its own problem. That doesn't mean that the country is a problematic country. But then we have to create solutions that can address these problems. And one such creative solution itself was the formation of Niti Aayog, which told itself that we have to transform the country altogether and think in terms of new paradigms if the country has to grow. And that was the conceptual basis, the foundational pillar on which Niti Aayog was conceptualized. And this five-year plan saw its complete trajectory shifted. And today we see the Niti Aayog responsible for building a country that should think what it needs to be 10 years from now, 15 years from now, and more recently, 2047 through the Viksit Bharat. And the entity Niti Aayog is one such powerful instrument that is going to be responsible for achieving Viksit Bharat at 2047. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's our proud privilege that we have amidst us Mr. Subramaniam to deliver the 18th memorial lecture. And please put your hands to welcome him. And the topic that he has chosen for this talk is the relevance of trade in the context of India's growth opportunities. And given that Tanjore district is a very active trading ecosystem, both merchandise trading as well as commercial services trading by way of intellectual capital, not because Shastra is producing intellectual capital, but Tanjavur district is also known for its intellectual fertility. And again, I'll have to relate only to Mr. Narayanan, who was also one of the reasons who just seeded those financial fertilizers to make sure that this fertility is constantly enriched both by way of merchandise trading as well as human capital trading. And we see a lot of institutions, enterprises that have contributed. But that apart, the topic itself is going to be very interesting, and I must confess my ignorance on this subject because I am not a specialist in trade economics. But I know that the country is now witnessing a significant change, especially after COVID, when the country has received so much attention at the global stage. You might see that now even the WTO has recast its figures, looking at global trade, how it is going to grow for 2024 and 2025. They have very emphatically and with great levels of confidence said that maybe the bad times after COVID has gone, when we saw 22-23 dipping in trade, especially in merchant trading. There was a significant contribution by way of commercial trading, IT, online services, and all of that, because COVID actually gave that a momentum that saw a good increase. But now it is again back to manufacturing, merchandise trading. And also in addition to that, there is a huge impact that digital services can add to the global trade. And I think, in my personal opinion, India has a competitive advantage on that, considering that we have mastered the art of digitizing the public services, the UPI, and we are at a very strong position where we can tell the world how this can be done at a large scale. Though most of our trade experience has been very progressive with countries in North America, a little bit in UAE, and very recently our neighbors. Now the time has also come for India to go beyond the conventional borders and tell the world that we are a good trade partner, not only with the advanced economies, but also with all sorts of economies. And one such symbolic gesture was the induction of the African Union into the G20 under the G20 presidency of India. Because I personally view the African Union as one large potential where we can definitely enrich the trade relations with the African countries. And our recent efforts to also build good levels of diplomacy with many of our neighbors is also making this statement, look south, act south, global south, all of that is now becoming very India-centric. And the role of trade in making sure that this gets the catalyst effort that it deserves is very tellingly visible. And I am sure at the end of the lecture, you will know why I am making this statement. It's because that the time for trade as a potent instrument for the growing opportunities that await India is becoming significantly important in the next few years to come. So with this background, I again welcome all of you for the 18th City Union Bank Shri V. Narayanan Memorial Lecture. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I would now like to invite Dr. N. Kamakodi, MD and CEO of the City Union Bank, to present a memento to the chief guest of the evening, Shri BVR Subramaniam. And now for the most awaited moment of the evening, I welcome Shri BVR Subramaniam, CEO Niti Aayog, to deliver the 18th CUB Shri V. Narayanan Memorial Lecture.
Respected Professor Sethuraman, the Vice Chancellor, Dr. Vaidya Subramanian, Dr. Kamakoti, distinguished people in the audience, students, and other invitees. First of all, I'm extremely honored to have been chosen and to have been invited to deliver the Narayanan Memorial Lecture. I am a small man to fill the shoes of my predecessors who have spoken on this occasion. I saw the list of people who have addressed this gathering in the past, and they're extremely eminent, and I'll try to live up to their standards. Secondly, to a large part of the audience, this is not going to be a lecture in economics, so it's going to be much more simpler. So, so it's not going to be purely about trade and WTO. I don't want people to start fiddling with their mobile phones or scratching their heads. And I'll try to, you see, there is an election season going on outside. And things tend to get reported in any way. So I was trying to figure out what would be the most dull topic which can go on record. So I gave that as a topic so that becomes irrelevant, But I will put it in a larger context, and I think that's why I'm here. I'm extremely honored. First of all, this is my first visit to the campus of Shastra. I am extremely impressed. I've heard a lot about it. Incidentally, let me now be public about it. I have a nephew who actually passed and graduated out of this place. So I heard about it only through that, And I never came here when he studied. I only know he passed out, and right now he is in Dallas. That's all I know. Otherwise, I didn't know. But I knew that this was a fantastic place, heard a lot. I have also heard about this from the Kanchi Acharya, who has been praising the institution a lot. From a lot of bureaucrats and good friends and colleagues in government, they have praised the institution. And I think you have established your stamp in the field of education as an institution of par excellence. And I think that's something the country is proud of. Your contribution is great. Because as I go along, you'll see, trade is incidental, but as I said, in trade, one of the strongest things India exports is services. And services is nothing but human beings. And what human beings are is actually not two hands or two legs or two eyes, it's the mind. And I think that's what Shastra does. It is growing people's minds. And actually that is contributing to trade in some way or the other. So I think you have laid a fantastic foundation. I compliment the founders of the institution, the current people who are running. It's divine grace that they have set it up. But the fact is that setting up institutions is the most difficult thing. Giving a lecture from a podium like this is the easiest thing. But actually building an institution is blood, sweat, toil and tears which go on for decades. And I think the people who have built up this institution for the last 40 years now, 84 or so it was set up. It's actually a very long journey that it has come so far. And all of you, the younger people who are enjoying the fruits of that, have actually to thank the efforts of these people who have built up this fabulous place. I've just come and seen the student center cum library building which is there right now. It's par with some of the best I have seen. Georgia Tech, you go to USA, you have got similar student centers there. And I was telling them, this is actually fabulous, the kind of infrastructure that is on campus. You should all be proud. The contribution of Shastra, I'd like to say, I will read out a small poem in Telugu, which a lot of people know. In Andhra know. Maybe some of you understand, but I'll translate it for those who find it difficult. It's about the importance of knowledge and how knowledge builds human beings, and it's the biggest wealth you have. I'll first say it and tell you. Vidya niguda guptamagu vittama roopamu purshalikin vidya yasessu bhogakari vidya gurundu videsa bandudun vidya vishishta daivatamu vidyaku saati dhanambu ledilan vidya nrupala pujitamu vidya nerunga nivadu matyude. What it basically says is, knowledge is the most secret form of wealth that human beings can carry with them. That is the biggest asset that you carry with you in the. It gives you yash, it gives you respect, it gives you wealth, it gives you all kinds of pleasures in this world. And it is a guru for you. It is also an asset which you carry when you go to foreign lands. It is a special God which is there inside you. And there is no other wealth which can match knowledge which is there. Vidya is respected and honored by kings and governments. And persons who don't have knowledge are no better than animals. So I think building an education institution is the biggest contribution that anybody can do to society, because you're actually transferring knowledge, which is the best wealth that are there. And I come from a family of teachers, and I've spent 5 years in the academy at Mussoorie as a teacher. Although I was in the service, I cut out 5 years of collectorship or whatever and said I'll be in the faculty. It's my biggest pleasure is that 7 batches of civil servants from all services have gone through my hands. So today when they do well somewhere, As a teacher, you are proud. When you hear somebody doing something good somewhere, now they are all secretaries in state governments. The first batches are becoming additional secretaries in Government of India. You feel extremely proud that they are doing well. I think that's the relationship with teachers and students have here also. The students and teachers relationship is the most purest kind of relationship that is there. There is no give and take. It's only give one side and hope that they live up to whatever has been given. So I think that is something you will also remember. I'll give you an example. There was everybody knows this is a big technological college, Microsoft. Satya Nadella, his father is an IAS officer, B.N. Yugandhar. And B.N. Yugandhar was also the director of the Mussoorie Academy. So when I was there, I called him for a talk. He was then quite an old man, 70, 75. And then, after dinner, he's chatting outside. And he gave an example of one of his probationers. And his probationer, who later on in Haryana cadre, died in a car accident after 10 years. This man went to see, he was a secretary in Government of India then, to meet the wife and condole her. The wife caught hold of him and cried. She's a widow now. And she said, "Sir, Yugandhar went there because he was feeling guilty, because he used to punish this probationer hell of a lot. Threw him out of the hostel once for 3 days and all that. And that girl came and told, 'Sir, there was not a day when my husband would not remember you,' saying that I have been trained by Yugandhar and I will be a first-rate officer." So that's the relationship between a teacher. If your teachers are harsh towards you, if they are actually trying to pull you up, it's only for your benefit in the long run. And I think that's something once you grow wiser. In youth, we don't remember all these things. But the moment we cross youth and reach middle age, you'll realize the contribution of your teachers. Now, I think I will stop about that and go back to the topic I came. It's a great pleasure to be in this institution. First, let me set the context. The second part of my topic was, India's growth potential. That's an important thing. It's important for everybody, the old, the middle-aged, and the young. India is at a turning point in history. It is at a cusp in its growth trajectory. And I'll explain what it is. And it's something to, the next century is going to be India's century. 21st century, end of that, very few of us are probably going to be around. Maybe some of you are younger, are going to be there when 2100 comes. I hope a lot of the younger people are going to be there. India will be seen as the country which has shaped this century. And why am I saying so? I'm saying this because a lot of factors in this world are going in India's favor. It is like a lot of events, the confluence of that is coming towards India, and India is on a rising tide. And what are they? Firstly, I am a civil servant. I have spent 35 years of my career doing what? Roti, kapda, makan. Address problems of basic needs of people: drought, flood, famine, scarcity, getting roads going, electricity connections, water supply, drinking water, housing, shelter. This is all. What is this? This is fundamentally basic things which people need to exist. Mind you, our government's challenge the last 75 years has been to provide this to all citizens of India. Luckily, we have now reached the point, we are almost reaching the end of that. Most people have electricity in homes. Most villages have roads. All villages have roads. Electricity is there now in all households. So we are actually licking what I call the problems of the last century. In another year or two, every household will have a tap with water. Many districts of Tamil Nadu, the houses already have tap water. In another 1 or 2 years, by 25 end, there will be no part of India where basic services is an issue. So now we can focus our minds on the next thing. And what is the next thing? It is about actually becoming a developed nation. And that's the big challenge. And let me tell you, not too many people have handled this problem so far in India, because we've all been busy tackling the other problems. And there's a lot of things that we have done in the last 70 years which make us feel confident. We are not a one-trick pony. We are not a single product economy. We have a very diverse economy. We have agriculture, we have industry, manufacturing, mining, services. You go to Bangladesh, they seem to be doing well. But what does Bangladesh make? Only garments. Finished. They don't make fabric. They don't make yarn. They import everything. You go to Sri Lanka, two-trick pony. They will make garments and they'll have tea or tourism. That's it. We have an economy which is on par with any other country in terms of the diversity. There is nothing which is not made in India in some form or the other. So we have built up a very, very diverse economy in the last 70 years. But there are other factors which are also coming in India's favor. It's the people in the room, the back rows, the youth. demography is in India's advantage. We are one of the youngest countries in the world. The median age of India is 29 years. The median age of United States is 37, 38. Median age of China is 39. Median age of Japan is 45. We have one of the youngest populations in the world. And this population is raring to go, and it will drive India's future. You are the people who are actually going to transform this nation. And this is going to be the workforce of the world. By 2030, 1/5 of the world's workforce is going to be in India. The way the demography, in another 5 years, 70% of our population is going to be working age population. Nowhere in the world has a country ever had 70% of its population in the workforce. That creates its own momentum. The moment people have 2 hands and 2 legs, they will work. The moment you work, you will generate some GDP. And that will lead to the total GDP of the country. That's what will drive growth. So I think that demography is massively in our favor. Luckily, world politics, geopolitics is also in our favor. It was not so 10 years ago. But thanks to China, the way they are behaving, they have been generally not liked now around the world. You must have read in the papers, there's something called China +1. I know any number of industrialists who come and tell me, sir, suddenly we are getting calls from some American companies, can you supply us garments, can you supply us shoes? We are asking why, we never even approached you. Headquarters is saying get out of China, buy from other countries. Which other country can substitute China in the same size? Only India. I mean, there is Vietnam, there is other countries, but how big are they? You take a population of Malaysia, 20 million, population of Thailand, 70 million. We are 140 crores, 1,400 million. That's a huge number. This is the only country which can substitute China is India. And so this is actually going to be a big, big factor which is actually helping India. You have heard these words, friend-shoring. People want to buy only from friendly countries, near-shoring. These are all the things. So this is a fourth factor which is actually driving India's growth. And it will drive India very, very, very far ahead. The other is, people saw COVID. And we only saw our part. But actually the entire world economy got stuck because of COVID. There was no shipping going on. There was a huge supply chain problems. China stopped supplying chips to everybody. Even Indians could not produce cars. Cars were being produced, but their cars also have microprocessors. There was a shortage. There was a time when you had to wait 3 years for a car, 3 years ago. They were not available. Scooters were not available. Shortage of chips. So people want supply chains to be diversified. Again, India comes into the play. So supply chain diversification is going to help India. And there's another thing. Whenever there is technological disruption, you get huge opportunities to leapfrog levels of development. And 2 major technological changes are going to hit the world. They are hitting them. One is climate change. Thanks to climate change, you will be using far less of petrol or diesel cars or scooters in future, far less of coal as an energy subsource in future. You will have new technologies coming in. The advantage of a new technology is everybody is at the same starting level. If you want to make a car, you are competing with Mercedes, BMW, Toyota, who have been in the game for 30, 50 years. If you suddenly want to make electric cars, the fellow who was the best car maker, electric in the world, said Tesla was just making it 10 years ago. His head start is much less. So the chance for you to use technological disruption to go ahead is very high. The second thing which is also hitting everybody is artificial intelligence. AI is, some of you are in probably computer science, you would have read here and there, it is going to destroy jobs. I hear both sides of the story. It's going to destroy some jobs, but it's going to create a huge number of jobs. And I don't think anybody should be worried about AI destroying jobs. When we were young, photocopiers got invented. And then with computers got invented. So people thought that computers are going to finish typists in government. You won't need any more typists and you won't need paper. Paper consumption in government has quadrupled after computers came. Because you do print button, you press the print button all the time. So paper consumption has not gone down just because computer. So please don't think that there will be a lesser demand for computer scientists because AI is going to kill the coding jobs. It's going to kill some types of jobs, but it will create new jobs. That's the dynamic world which is there in the economy. That there is creative destruction of some parts, but there is creation in some other parts. So all these things are favoring India, and in particularly AI, India is a very, very strong. We have the second largest workforce as far as AI is concerned. So I don't think this is going to be a disadvantage. So if you see all these things, be it geopolitics, be it demography, be it our strength as an economy, be it supply chain diversification, be it technological discontinuity, all of them are favoring India becoming a very strong, developed, rich nation. So this is a certainty. And therefore I'll say momentum is in our favor. You hear that word in cricket, right? You all watch IPL. If some team is on a roll, it has won 4 matches, the tendency is it will keep winning more matches, One time Chennai Super Kings used to be like that. It's not doing well this year. Some others are doing this. Lucknow fellows are suddenly come in, But the thing is, there's something called momentum. India has growth momentum in its favor. So the growth momentum is in our favor. It is for us to spoil the show. The show otherwise will not be spoiled. Nobody else can spoil our show. Only we can spoil our show. And I think that's very, very important. And it's visible. We travel around this country, everything is visible. We know that India is the 5th largest economy. Our GDP share in the world 30 years ago used to be 1%. It's now about 3.5%. If you take our trade also, we have increased massively over the last couple of decades. So the whole country, you can see as you go around, is very, very different. Our global stature is much higher. As you go around, India is now recognized, talked to with respect. I've been told, I worked with 2 prime ministers, with Manmohan Singh used to tell me, in the 1960s, he used to walk up and down Pennsylvania Avenue, which is outside the White House and State Department and Treasury in the US, because, we were waiting for PL 480 wheat to feed our people. The joke used to be India existed from ship to mouth. The ship will come and the food will go to your mouth. It's not even hand to mouth. That was one part. Today, if you see, we are the world's largest rice exporter. More than half of the world's rice is actually from India, both basmati and non-basmati. We are a significant wheat exporter. I was Commerce Secretary before I became Niti Aayog CEO. $50 billion is our agri exports. Look at the transformation. We are either world's number 1 or 2 in many, many products. Milk, eggs, agricultural products, wheat, rice. We are either number 1 or 2 everywhere. So it shows the transformation that has happened and it's visible everywhere. You see the landscape around us. I mean, if you came here 50 years ago, this would have been farmland possibly. Today I have this lovely university campus and new facilities are getting added. I was wondering how will I come to Tanjavur. They said there is an airport in Trichy. I remember as a child, Indian Airlines used to fly to Trichy. Then suddenly I realized there are international flights here. And then I landed at the airport. I learned that there are more international flights in Trichy than domestic flights. So it's very well connected. This is country which is changing. I mean, it's visible. It's visible in, everybody. I was a kid, the moment a child was born, parents used to register themselves for a telephone connection. Because by the time the child grows up, you register for a telephone and you register for a scooter, Bajaj scooter. By the time the child becomes an adult, you'll get the phone and the scooter. That was what India was. Today you have to tell your child, stop changing your model every 3 years, This is the change that has come, You don't have to wait for a telephone connection. You don't wait for cars and scooters. It's visible in the buildings that are all around us. I was landing in Chennai airport and the city Gindi was the southern end of the city. The green area, etc. That's hardly, it's now city center, am I right? It's far below the city, is God knows, another 20 kilometers. It's there, be it Trichy, be it Tanjore, be it wherever. The country is changing and the change is visible in front of our eyes. But again, another point. If we are growing to go like this, and we are growing 7%, maybe if we maintain that 7 to 8% growth rate, India is going to become, with this growth momentum, a $30 trillion economy by 2047. We are about $3.5 trillion now. We'll be roughly 10 times. And it is going to be in the working lives of many of you in this room that India will be a $30 trillion economy. That number is actually very difficult to comprehend. It's more zeros, right? You don't know what that zero is. I don't know, there was a movie long ago, Gregory Peck was there, So somebody printed $1 million note. And this guy was handed over $1 million note. And the whole movie is about the guy being unable to spend the $1 million note. Because nobody would take the $1 million note because they can't give him change for that. Chillar kahan se milega, so that's the basic problem. So the same thing here, $30 trillion is very difficult to comprehend. There are a couple of ways of imagining. The size of the US economy today is $25 trillion. So in 2047, India is going to be larger than the United States is today. I'm not saying US will not be bigger. It may be slightly bigger, but we will be bigger than what US is today. Just try to comprehend what it is, Second, 90% of India that is going to be there in 2047 is not yet built. It doesn't exist. A $3 trillion economy becoming a $30 trillion economy means that 27 trillion is yet to come into existence. Mind you, in your lifetimes, this country will be unrecognizable, just as the older people will find that a lot has changed in their last 30 years. The next 30 years, there are going to be dramatic changes. And I think that's something we need to be there. So you can see that how the growth momentum is in our favor and it is changing things. And there will be more change as we go along, Our lifestyles will change. Our per capita income will change. Luckily, our population will stabilize. It will stabilize around 160, 165 crores. Today, we are about 140. Most parts of India have grown below what is called the replacement rate of TFR, total fertility rate is below 2.1. Tamil Nadu is quite below it, 1.8. But the country on average has gone below 2.1. So on average, the country does not have enough children being born to replace. But there's something called a population momentum. The younger children will grow and they'll have some children. So we'll stabilize at about 165 crores. So that is going to be visible to us. And there'll be dramatic changes. Our urban areas will look very different. Our lifestyles are going to be very different. The way we use technology in our day-to-day things are different. India is going to become much more globally integrated. A $3.5 trillion economy is already got a lot of weight in the world. A $30 trillion economy is somebody who is going to be a big heavyweight in the world. Without you saying yes or no, the world won't move. This is the future of India. And all of you are going to experience the fruits of that, We will be a global leader. It's undeniable. It has to happen and it will happen. We can see parts of it happening. We just held a G20 and the world actually was wondering whether there will be a resolution passed at the end of the G20. Because of our presence and our force and effort, a resolution actually was passed at G20. There is a fight going on, Russia, China, USA, Ukraine, all that. In spite of that, we managed something. So that shows India's heft. So this looks like a very, very bright picture. Rich country, $30 trillion, per capita incomes will be $15,000 to $20,000. You'll probably have reverse migration of, Americans and Europeans coming to India for jobs. Who knows, that may be happening. The whole thing will be different. But point to remember, we are not yet there. I'm like a movie script writer. I'm showing you the film. It's only a film. The film has to get converted to reality, and it is not yet there. How do you convert it to reality? I think that's very important. And many things have to be done if that film actually has to become real. When our forefathers started the freedom movement, most of them knew they are not going to be probably alive when the freedom comes. 1850, 60, 70, they began all that. You got it in 1947. So this is a 25-year journey. We need to do a lot of things. One of the most important things is education and skilling. That's why I read out that poem in Telugu in the beginning, because education and skilling are fundamental. Without that, this country is not going to live up to its potential. And again, another data point. If in 2047, that's 25 years from now, 23 years from now, if you say the working age people are going to be about 21 years, when would a person who would be 21 in 2047 be born? 2026. That's about 2 years from now. Most of the people who are going to be working in 2047 are already born. They're around us, including some of you here. We need to skill them and educate them fast. Time is running out. And why I'm telling you that's important? It's important because there are certain things which science tells us. The growth of a child's brain in the first 3 years is most critical. 90% of cognitive development of the brain happens in the first 3 years. 80% happens in the first 6 months. If you don't feed the child well, if you don't take care of the child well, it doesn't matter. You can put that child to the best education later on, that person will still be lagging behind because the cognitive development has not happened. But you think, in our old houses in ancient times, older time, little children would be made to speak, made to recite poems, all that. There was no concept of nursery, kindergarten, say some shloka, something, do something. Old people would sit with them and make them do things, speak. You're making them actually grow their minds. The first 3 years are most important. The person who's going to be treated now, right now, today, will be the workforce in 2047. So we need to invest very fast. We have a window of 2 to 3 years to get our act going on this. So is the case with healthcare. You need to take care of, the health, not only of the youthful people, senior citizens. Today, 10% of our population is above 60. It looks small, not 10%. But the problem with India is numbers. 10% is 150 million people. 15 crore old people are there in India. I fall in that category. I'm also above 60. But the point is, and by 2047, that's going to be 20% of the population, of a larger population. 30 crore Indians are going to be old in 2047. Do you have any system to take care of them? Okay, the old family systems are collapsing. Some children are in cities, some are abroad. The old people are probably going to be around here. We have not developed systems to do that. So a lot has to be done there, We need to transform our manufacturing. We need to transform our services. Sometimes when I travel around in Tamil Nadu, I feel very happy. As Commerce Secretary, I came to a couple of places. There's a huge industrial revolution happening in some parts of India. It's happening in Tamil Nadu, it's happening in Maharashtra, Telangana, Karnataka, Gujarat. You can see that. You can see nice factories, 30, 40,000 people working there. You can see that happening. Tiruvannamalai, I went, there's a shoe factory, 33,000 people in one SCZ, all making Nike shoes. Actually, there are 32,000 of them are women, only 1,000 men. There are actually no women now working in the fields, because the entire labor force is in the factories. It's the men doing the farming and the women in the factories. They're better off, actually. So the point I'm saying is, it's a revolt. But the question is it happening everywhere? We need to do that in other parts of India. And I think there are large parts of India with heavy population where we need to get this transformation going. So with services. Again, this state is doing very well in services. The 3 southern states, Hyderabad, Chennai, Bangalore, with some Pune and Noida are doing well. But what about the rest of India? How do we also, within the state, take it down to smaller towns? Everything can't be Chennai. You need to push it to Trichy, Tanjavur, Madurai. You need to push to tier 2, tier 3 cities. So a lot has to be done to transform manufacturing, services. And we need to invest in science and technology. India today, we all began first with, when did the IT boom began? The IT boom began in year 2000 because of what was called the Y2K problem. God helped us. It just fell like a laddu in our hands. And why did the problem come? Because when they did the coding, dates are there, and they used only 2 digits for the dates. So it used to be 1962 is 62, 63, 64. Nobody thought there will be a date called 2000 and the digits are going to be 00. And division by 00 is a problem. So you have to recode everything. If you were born and if you're alive in 99, everybody was writing the world is going to stop on 1st January 2000. Airplanes are going to fall from the skies, railway trains are going to stop. That was the horror scenario. That gave millions of jobs to Indians to recode the world, That's the source of the IT boom. IT, then we also picked up the BPO stuff. We are now writing coding. All that stuff is happening. The big thing today is what is called global capability centers. We are not just software writers. We are now doing R&D in India for other companies. Ford is no longer making cars in India. But Ford's cars are designed in India. General Motors has exited India, but General Motors cars are designed. They employ 20,000 people. And these are called GCCs. There are today in India 1,200 GCCs. They employ 30 lakh people. This is science. This is R&D, which is being done by engineers, doctors, lawyers, economists. They're actually there employed in legal research is done in India for New York, London, Tokyo. We need more of that. But we also need to push them to smaller towns and cities. So these are all the transformations we need to do if we have to transform India. And that brings me to the last part, my original theme, which was mentioned, which is trade. Why do we need to transform manufacturing? So that we supply not only ourselves, but the rest of the world. The growth of China has been nothing but becoming the manufacturing workshop for the world. If I tell you what's the total manufacturing capacity of the world that is there in China, it's 35%. 35% of the world's production happens in one country, which is China. Becoming the workshop of the world has been their mantra to success. Similarly, we need to transform our manufacturing so that we feed the world, not just ourselves. And I think both in services and in manufacturing, trade becomes very, very important. And mind you, it's not going to be difficult. Today, the atmosphere and the climate is very favorable. The world wants India to succeed. Every foreign country head who comes to India has good things to say. Foreign heads, you can forget, even heads of companies. The other day, the head of JP Morgan in the US, I said, oh, a lot of good things are happening in India. I hope such things happen in the United States. So people want India to succeed. And among the many things that we need to do, we need to become a global power in trade. And becoming a global power in trade is very essential for a variety of reasons. Trade, how do you can trade well if you make good stuff. And good stuff means you meet what the rest of the world requires. Opening yourself to trade makes you improve your quality. It makes you improve your productivity. It is a well-established fact that to increase productivity and to increase efficiency of use of resources, you should be open to competition. And competition from around the world. Keeping yourself protected doesn't help. India protected itself for 70 years. We got ambassador cars. We got Standard Herald and Premier Padminis. You opened yourselves to the world. You have become the world's largest exporter of small cars. Maruti, Hyundai. They sell the small cars from India around the world. So we should be confident of our abilities. Openness also improves incomes. It improves prosperity. It reduces poverty. Benefits are many. If we become an open economy, allowing free trade, it increases FDI. Foreign companies come and set up shop in India if they can actually sell from India to the rest of the world. You have a lot of procedures. People find very hesitant to actually come here. Foreign direct investment and open trade brings you technology, brings you better management, brings you efficiency. It improves your standards. And most importantly, there is something called gradually by osmosis, the best practices in FDI in the country move to other sectors of the economy. One foreign company sets up shop. There are two ways the rest of them learn. One is you copy them and do it. The other is some people leave that company after 5 years and set up their own stuff outside. And that's how by osmosis, your technology, your management, everything. So we should become more open. And what are facts saying? All economic research says, openness to trade has always led to high growth. Those who have not been open to trade may do well for a few years, but then they don't grow fast enough. That's very, very important. If you increase your openness by, say, about 1%, your growth rate actually grows up by about 1.2 to 1.5%. And I think that's very, we always talk about, let's protect ourselves through high tariffs, foreign competition. Foreign competition is good. Some fellows will shut down their factories because they're not efficient. But new fellows will come. We don't buy ambassadors today, do we? The company actually is shut. They're building a mall in Hindustan Motors, Calcutta. Premier Padmini doesn't make cars, but there are so many more car companies now, and they're all Indian. You got Tata, Mahindra, you got name it. There are so many of them who are world class. And two-wheelers, we are the world's best. We are global champions now in two-wheelers. And I said, we used to wait for 16 years to get a scooter. Today we supply half the world. And Chennai itself is a major, scooter manufacturer. So openness leads to growth in incomes. It reduces poverty and it improves your technology. So one of the transformations we have to do is to have a trade system which is open, low tariffs, no favorites, let the fittest survive. The thing with market economics is it's the law of the jungle. The fittest will survive. But there will be enough fit people to survive. And 140 crore Indians, I think there are enough people who will manage to survive and do a very good job. Some old businesses will shut down. but new businesses will come up, and I think that's very important. The problem is this message is not easily understood. First of all, a lot of noise. People don't talk about openness. When you open a newspaper, you will only say, oh, we should protect this industry, we should protect that industry, etc. Who are they? They're all vested interests. They want to protect their existing business. The future is in new businesses who are more competitive. The moment you open your economy, you actually will allow new people to set up new businesses. If some of you actually end up doing a startup yourself in this room from the university, you know who is going to be your biggest challenge? The incumbent big chap who's already there in India. And he will try his or her best to see that you don't grow. So you need to keep a level playing field. And if you want to create innovation and entrepreneurship in India, you should have competition coming in from outside. That will keep things even here. Otherwise, big dominant groups will not allow innovation and entrepreneurship to grow in India. This is very, very important. Having said this, I'll just conclude in 2 or 3 minutes. So, if you want to become a $30 trillion economy, if you want to become that big, powerful country which India wants to be or can be, with all the things which are happening in the world in your favor, the important thing, among many things apart from education and healthcare, is also to have an open borders policy, free trade, very low protection, very low tariffs, so that you get the best and you sell the best to the rest of the world. I'll give you one example. Pharmaceuticals. When you sell stuff to the US, you have to be approved by the US FDA. I believe you have a good department of life sciences here, etc. FDA cleared medicines meet US standards. The medicines which you and I consume in India are not FDA standard. What does it mean? Lower standard. Are Indians, to be consuming lower standard medicines? Why can't Indians be consuming higher standard medicines? It's very interesting. We actually keep lower standards for ourselves. What will happen is a lot of low quality people will be allowed to continue. We have 700 factories in India which are FDA approved for pharmaceuticals. Why can't we have everybody actually meeting global standards? It applies across the board. If you take services, what is India's biggest strength? I said demography, our young people. Most Indian certifications are not recognized abroad. Skill certification. Your carpenters don't have a certificate. Your electricians anyway don't have a certificate. Your marine chaps who run ships, they have certificate, but they are not recognized in other countries. They have to either sit for exams, etc. If you raise your standards and meet the standards which the rest of the world wants, think of the markets that are going to be there. I mean, the demand from nurses, United Kingdom wants 20,000 nurses a year. And who else will they supply? Get it from India. One advantage we have, for whatever historical reason, because of our colonial masters, we also speak English. We're lucky. We speak Tamil and English, Telugu and English, Hindi and English. Who else speaks? Nobody else. So, it's interesting. We are that huge potential market outside. We need to just push our, ITIs, diploma institutions, skilling centers, produce your workforce with the same standard which are there in the developed world. The market's open. It's amazing. After all, there's a war in Gaza. Whose labor are they asking for? Indian labor. Right? There is going to be a huge skill shortage in the world. This is going to be there for the next 30 years. We don't have to wait for H1B being liberalized. It will be liberalized. There's no choice. Okay, there may be a lot of politics at the top, but reality is this flow will happen because there's a shortage. And how will they run their economies without meeting this shortage? So to conclude, there is a lot to be done. We have a huge potential ahead of us. Among many things that need to be done, improving our trade systems is very important, which means keep open policies, keep your tariffs low, remove all your problems internally, which is bad electricity supply, bad transport systems, better logistics. We need to do that. We also need to ensure that our paperwork is easy. You all remember there's this movie, Munna Bhai, in which that fellow tries to get somebody into a hospital. And he asks in a classroom, Yeah, इलाज करने से पहले फॉर्म भरना जरूरी है क्या? You know, before I am treated, do I have to fill up a form? This is the biggest Indian hassle. To do anything in India, you have to fill up a form. And that's why industry doesn't come to India. I know people, I can quote any number of examples. There is this SEZ in near Chayur or wherever, which I visited. He makes, as I said, Nike shoes. He was opening another SEZ. So today SEZs don't get tax benefits. So I said, why are you opening another SEZ? There are no tax benefits. You can open it just like that. In an SEZ, it's a custom bonded area. There are no custom regulations there. Things can come from abroad and go out without anybody opening it. He said, Saab, if my container comes through Chennai, the chap will open it, close it, 3-day delay, too much of paperwork. If I call it an SEZ, he doesn't open it. Straight from ship, truck into my factory and out. It's much more efficient. I'll prefer to be an SEZ. What is it? It means paperwork in India is such a nuisance. It is a harassment in some ways. If you want to become a modern manufacturing nation, you need to be very simple. Things happen fast. I'm telling you, we have got a lot of bankers in the room. The number of times, I don't know, some of the younger people may also be familiar, you have to fill up this KYC form. I mean, it's absurd. And I'm preparing a reforms paper for the Prime Minister. Why can't you have one KYC once in your life and the other share the thing with each other? And by the way, it's there. I mean, if you try to open 3 bank accounts, 3 times you'll fill up. Luckily, mutual fund industry has sorted out the problem. You do one KYC, it is there across the board. But you go somewhere else, you'll have again KYC. You want to go to some Aadhaar card, again a KYC. I'm the same person. I've given you all the data once. Why? We love it in India, the way we like to make life miserable. But it's not good for business. Businessmen hate it. And today, trade happens in global value chains. You know, what's the old model? I take raw material, I produce something and I sell it. In the modern world, this mobile phone or a laptop, if you actually see from where all the stuff has come, there are about 500 places from which different things come. And they keep crossing all kinds of borders. A car made in Canada crosses the border with United States 8 times. 8 times. Parts will come to Canada, it is assembled, sent to Detroit, made a sub-assembly, come back to Canada, then master assembly, go back to USA, then a car body will be put, sent back to Canada, there the seats and all will be put, then sent back to USA, painted, sent back to Canada. 8 times it crosses the border. Suppose you have to start filling a form every time it crosses the border, it won't happen. So the modern way of manufacturing is value chains. The laptop which which you get, which says made in Malaysia, it has also gone through Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, China, Taiwan. Everything has got fed into it. And it all moves seamlessly up and down. It doesn't happen in India. I don't want to go into data. So we need to break these barriers and, break into that. We need to improve our skilling so that our young people can actually get jobs in these new factories that are going to come up. And we actually have a huge strength, which is we are among the brightest, smartest people in the world. I mean, we are a global CEO factory. You have to keep flipping all kinds of newspapers. This Indian is heading that company, this Indian is... That means we have such fabulous brains. Utilize them to the best of our abilities. See that they're not hampered. And this generation will take it forward. I'm sure institutions like Shastra will help the younger brains actually develop and take this country forward. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you very much, sir, for giving us a kind of a very, a helicopter view that covered a larger canvas, which went beyond the topic as well. And thanks for agreeing to take a few questions. I have assured him that I will see him off by 7 because he has a flight to catch at 8:30 from Trichy. So it's time to take questions, and let me moderate the Q&A myself so that I can ration the time accordingly. So if there are any questions, please raise your hand. A microphone will come. So I see many questions. Okay, so we'll start with, yeah, please. And then.
Good evening, sir.
Okay.
Thank you very much for a wonderful talk. In fact, feeling so privileged to listen to your word of wisdom. Sir, I have one leading question as well as a supplementary question. Hope I can ask both.
Yeah, as long as it's not a question paper.
Okay. Thank you. Sir, on one side we have fragmented trade. On the other side we have a lot of geopolitical conflicts. So in this context, how would you assess India's diplomacy in helping the growth of global trade?
Just bring the microphone here. Okay.
Yeah, you said two questions.
Yes, sir. The other question is diplomacy and friendly shopping is going to decide the future of global trade?
Look, I think number one, it's important to keep economics and diplomacy and politics as far apart as possible. I think that's very, very important. China and America are not getting along with each other. Who is America's largest trading partner even today? China. So please understand that. So we have to, that is reality. Over a period of time, it may reduce. But China's size, if I tell you, it's $18 trillion economy. 18 trillion. We are 3.5 trillion. It's the elephant in the room you can't ignore. So the world will learn to. So what did the Americans say? We will not shut out China. They said, small yard, high fence. We won't have a small fence around the whole economy, but have some areas which are critical and protect them, which is defense, security related, high fence, but a small yard, not a big yard with a small fence. Secondly, I think we have been very protectionist in India for a while, protecting our industry. I give you an example. You'll get more ambassador cars if you protect. The important thing is be open. India is one of the few countries which is not part of any large regional trading agreement. You see, EU is one common market. Vietnam is a massive success. What is the biggest government area in the country? Your neighbor, Tirupur. Okay. India and Vietnam had the same garment exports 15 years ago. Today, Vietnam is double ours. Leather exports, India and Vietnam were less than us 20 years ago. We doubled, and we are about 7-8 billion. They are 40 billion. What is it? Vietnam has a network of free trade agreements, including with United States and Europe. India doesn't have any agreements with major economies. We don't have FTA with Europe. We don't have FTA with UK. We are not part of the Pacific Trade Partnership. You cannot stand in splendid isolation. I can develop on my own, with my own market, is a myth. Why? You don't make everything. A lot of things you anyway buy from outside. And if you have to buy from outside, what is the solution? You also sell outside. So I think we should grow a huge network of FTAs. And these should be detached from politics. Politics has its own dimension. We have a problem with a neighbor. We won't trade temporarily with them. We shut it down. You understand? Pakistan on the other side. These things will happen. But in the long term, given the size and our aspirations, if you're a $30 trillion economy, won't you be actually interacting with every country in the world? And big time. So we should be actually having a network of trade agreements. And I think that should be driving us. We should be trying to open markets everywhere. And to open markets, what's the lever you have? Your market. I offer you my market, you give me your market. And it's going to work. Okay?
Take a question from the student here. Yeah.
Good evening, sir. Thank you for a great lecture. Sir, my question is, how is Indian jurisprudence equipped with tackling trade-related conflicts that arise in international waters?
Okay. So you're a lawyer, I presume.
Finally, a law student.
Good. Okay. So trade law, I have a degree in trade law. Okay. So it's a very specialized subject. There are multiple layers at which it is decided. You have trade law is a major, WTO has a dispute settlement mechanism. But at the WTO, cases are between countries. Okay. We have very few specialists in trade law in India who can handle WTO type cases. There is a second level. In free trade agreements, there are dispute settlement provisions. So you can actually take disputes. But again, it is country to country. So the cases are taken there by countries. There's a third level of disputes, which is dumping, anti-dumping. I mean, the country is selling products in your place below its production cost. Anti-dumping cases are by company against country. There is a lot of work which is there. There are hundreds of law firms in India which are actually specializing in anti-dumping cases. A lot of lawyers work in this area. They are full of anti-dumping cases. So there is a whole host of law firms, individuals, which have gained expertise in this kind of law, which is anti-dumping law. Trade law is largely government to government. So people work with governments. And there are a lot of policy law firms which work on that. I can name any number of them. Vidhi is there. Vidhi Legal is there. Many of them are there.
The girl there, in the corner there, yeah.
Good evening, sir. Thank you for your very insightful speech. My name is Savitri and I'm a final year law student. My question is there any counterintuitive correlation between democracy and trade and economic growth? Because pointing out the obvious, we have China, which is a non-democratic country, and they're acing and finessing in growth. So is there any correlation between democracy and trade?
Okay, it's a very interesting question. Why talk about China? South Korea, when it developed, for a long time was a dictatorship. Okay? And it's important not how you are governed politically. What is important is how are you run economically. I think that's the important point. If there is competition in your economy, if there is competition within firms within your economy, and you are open to trade and external competition, I think you will produce champions. It has very little to do with democracy. Where democracy will come in is other aspects. It is about distributional aspect. Some companies may become more powerful. They may start controlling the polity. There can be nexus. That's a very different debate. Economy itself doesn't suffer as long as you maintain these principles. One of the things, people complain Japan had a protected economy. You couldn't sell easily into Japan. But very important, the Japanese government never supported any one company. All Japanese companies are treated equal. They would fight. Try to name the number of photocopier companies that are there in Japan. Canon, Ricoh, Minolta, Fujitsu, God knows how many, 15, 20 of them are there. All of them making photocopiers and fighting like cats and dogs. Enough competition. It's competition that gets your economy going. So get your markets functioning well. Okay. The other layer which you asked is a different question. At some point, if a good democracy is not there, this may create problems because the two of them don't move in parallel. There's an entire Austrian school of economics which actually talks that free market economics require democracies. Otherwise, it won't function. But that's a much more detailed thing. What was the hope in China? The whole world embraced China, thinking that they become a free market economy. There'll be enough pressures that will come and it will become a democracy. We got Tiananmen Square. We didn't get democracy, right? So the point is, I think people have now stopped hoping for change there. But the point is, China got the market economics correct. I mean, their companies are world class. Let me be clear. I don't subscribe to a lot of these subsidy arguments. They have actually got world class companies who make good stuff. They may have copied, they have cheated, they have stolen IPRs, intellectual property, but they got the economics right.
There and then,
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead and then we'll have.
Good evening, sir. I'm Ashfaq from first year MBA. And according to the recent news, we came to know that India's GDP is now rising to almost 23% in terms of exports, and we are exporting many products like petroleum, gems, textiles, garments, and we even went to an extent of exporting our human individuals in the form of outsourcing for developing external economies also. But what I actually felt to ask is, what strategy does Niti Aayog recommend to enhance India's competitiveness in key export sectors?
Okay. You have two, please sit down. You have two things. You have trade in goods, you have trade in services. The two are very different. Trade in goods is manufactured products are bought and sold, right? To make them competitive, you need a good factories, and the good factors, which is logistics, land, labor, capital, electricity, at a good thing. That is one thing we are all struggling. NITI is coming up with a lot of policies. You have a PLI policy, which is there to make things on scale. India used to import 90% of its mobiles. Today, we are one of the bigger exporters of mobiles in the world. This transformation has happened in 4 years. I mean, I think 20% of Apple's production in the world now is in India. So we have become a major mobile. So that's on trade in goods. The other is trade in services. What is a trade in a service? Service is consumed not as a good, but as a facility. Okay? Services can be consumed in multiple ways. First is you consume it online. Consume it online means you see Netflix from US in India, or that is online consumption of a service. Second is I consume it abroad. That is tourism. The foreigner comes to India, he sees and goes back. That's also an export, but he's consuming the service by coming here. The third is establishment abroad. I open an office abroad. That is TCS opens an office in America and provides a service there. There's a fourth, which is movement of human beings. The human beings themselves go and deliver the service, India has been very strong in the third and the fourth one. We have delivered a lot of service by setting up offices elsewhere and by also exporting our manpower, which is nothing bad. I mean, end of the day, they are remitting money back to India. Our entire oil deficit is equal to our remittances. So our expatriates who are living around the world are allowing us to run our cars and in a very crude way, I'm saying, you have $100 billion of remittance and $100 billion of oil import. But what we need is, it's not all IT. If you look at the classification of services, and we were discussing this 3 days ago, and we are coming out with a strategy, look at the number of services that are there in the world. Construction services. How many Indian construction firms are there which are global? Chinese are there everywhere. You have got legal services. You got professional services. How many consulting firms are there? How many Indian chartered accountancy firms are global? How many law firms are global? None. None. But they're all manpower driven. That's all services. There's an opportunity. How many of our banks are global? In the top 50 banks in the world, we have one. Top 20 insurance companies in the world, we have one. Are you the world's fifth largest economy with just one small company? You need many more. And I assure you, they will come. There are plans. These will develop. I mean, there'll be just not one state bank or, one LIC. There'll be 20 LICs in India, 20 state banks in India. That's the transformation you'll see in the next 10 years. And we are preparing roadmaps for that.
One from a visitor, Professor Shriram from BIM.
I'm Shriram, professor from BIM Trichy. So thanks for the wonderful speech, sir. So I have one question. So on the one way, there is a gap which is widening between haves and have-nots. The other side, in your remark, you said Indians are consuming kind of substandard or lower standard medicines. I don't think it's only in medicines, everywhere, like vegetables or oils or whatever that we are exporting. Inside India, we are always consuming kind of less standard. So how do you see these two things? And also on the other side, we have a lot of SMEs, MSMEs, which are kind of mushrooming. They also want to export only. So then where we go?
Okay, on inequality, what is important is not inequality. What is important, are you raising the last person also? Okay. Is the poorer person slightly better? Have you removed hunger? After having removed hunger, have you managed to double his income? Don't look at the guy whose income has gone 20 times. Look at the guy whose income is there and you want to raise it. I think that's very, very important. You can Google and see a case study. It's called the economic study of a prisoner of war camp. This is an economist became a prisoner of war in the Second World War. So he was in a prison. So in the prison, you don't have currency. You don't have money. So in the prison, everybody is equal. Everybody is getting up in the morning, doing exercise, getting breakfast, forced labor, then something. But over 3 years, a full-fledged economy developed inside the prison. And what became currency? They were all given cigarettes to smoke, 2 cigarettes a day. The cigarettes became currency. I am given 4 rotis to eat or 4 breads. You are given 4. I need only 2. So I have now 2 rotis to sell. So I will now exchange it for something from you. Soon, you may not want what I am selling. He may want, but he'll have something you will buy. You need a currency. The cigarettes became. In 3 years, a full-fledged money-based economy developed in a German prisoner of war camp. And the other thing is, over the 3 years, a rich-poor divide happened in the print. Some fellow collected more and more and more cigarettes because he was selling more stuff and was not consuming enough. He had a lot of cigarettes with him, So the point is, the prisoner of war camp is a reflection of what happens in the world. We are not all equal. So because we are not equal, if I distribute money equally in this room, I give everybody 100 rupees and say, let us all meet 1 month later. Somebody will be in debt and somebody will have 10,000 rupees. This is the world. Now, are you going to say tax this fellow? The point is not that. But the fellow who is sinking, you need to raise. See that everybody is equally endowed. That is why the emphasis on education, skill, etc. So that minimum standards are maintained, that is one. The second, what you talked about is standards. The problem is, we never had standards in India. I mean, a lot of stuff, even the food you consume, you don't know what quality you're consuming. If you impose global standards tomorrow, everything will shut down. All the shops on this road, the eateries will shut down because nothing is meeting any health standard. You don't want that to happen. So you have to do it very gradually, over a period of time, with transition. If I impose global medical standards for our pharmaceuticals, half your medical companies will shut down. They can't function. So you have to do it gradually, and I think that nudging is happening by pharma, because what happens is, everybody is not selling in America. They're selling in Africa also. So somebody will die there. Ghana, it happened. You sent some syrup and people died. Who gets a bad name? India. Indian medicines are bad. That country is banning. The other day something happened. I think somebody is testing our Hong Kong, or what is it? Our MDH masala. Everest and
masala. Everest and MDH.
So some country, Singapore or Hong Kong, I think, has started testing that because they found some pesticide in it. You and I are eating it, every day. TV ads are there, that chap with mustache and he's selling you MDH. But we are consuming it because we have, now FSSAI. So point is, you need to raise these standards. Can't do it overnight. It will take time. The jalebis you eat, you don't know what are the chemicals in that jalebi which is giving its nice orange color. I'm being very honest about it. But you won't stop eating it also overnight. And forefathers have eaten, I'll also eat. But the point is, over a period of time, you will gradually have to raise the standard. Can't do it overnight. But if you want to be global in nature, you need to do that. And there's no escaping that.
We'll have that lady ask the last question with that, please. Yeah.
Good evening, sir. Thank you for the opportunity. I just have a question. Brexit happened. So we had UK with 35 free trade agreements. And India, we are roughly about 13 agreements, if I'm not wrong. So in spite of so many agreements done by UK, they had to move out. And today we talk about re-globalization and re-nationalization. How do you feel that India, in spite of all these positive statistics, will go ahead with free trade agreements?
That's the worry. Reform happens only when there is difficulty. India has always reformed when there is a crisis. The smart people, question is, do you put your hand in the fire, it gets burnt, and then will you cure it? Or will you know that if you put your hand in the fire, it will burn, so I will not put it? Why do we need to wait till a crisis hits us to make reform? That's the thing. Britain, as you said, didn't have a Department of International Trade. They created a department, trained 4,000 people in 1 year in trade. And they created a department. I started the UK FTA negotiations when I was Commerce Secretary. I was hoping to conclude it before I left Commerce. I retired in September. They lost a queen, they lost 2 prime ministers, so some delays or whatever, and it's still dragging on. But the point is, when we used to go for negotiations, I used to send 30 people in my team. They would come with 200 people. What is bench strength? We actually need much more manpower in India in all our departments, etc. Government is and organizations are not about moving files. It's about intellect. We need far more people to do this, and that's what they all have. If you want to become a developed economy, you need to have far more intellect. 2, globalization, people will say is under threat, this, that. It is under threat only for security-related items. Correct. If tomorrow United States stops buying stuff from China, they will not have buckets in their houses, they will not have bulbs in their houses, they'll pay 3 times the price. Who will pay the price? The American consumer. The country will collapse because of inflation. There's no choice. So I don't think globalization is vanishing. I think we need to go out. And what is our problem? We are so, economically competent, brainiest people, entrepreneurs, traders. We were the workshop of the world. In Hindi, we used to call India Sone ki Chidiya, Dunya ka Dukan, all this stuff. Why can't we actually have confidence? You see your old movies, or that Punnian, Selvan, whatever, your ships are going all over Southeast Asia, your traders were there in Burma, Singapore, all over the world. So I think there's something inherently good in our country. By protecting us, we are not helping the other guy. We are actually hurting ourselves. We are restricting our own capabilities. Right? Thank you.
Thank you. With that good news, let's conclude the Q&A session. As he rightly said, global trade will have its own natural and national resilience framework. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. Now I would like to invite Dr. N. Kamakodi, CEO and MD of City Union Bank, to deliver the vote of thanks.
On behalf of the Board of Directors, executives, and employees of City Union Bank, family members of late Shri V. Narayanan, let me offer my heartfelt thanks to Shri B.V.R. Subramaniam for giving this wonderful lecture. I think I could see the flashy eyes of most of the students. I think they have most of their questions about their future answered. I think they have started understanding what is there in store for them in future. And the way you were able to give a path, how it is going to look in the next, when they get into the, the industry in the market, and probably, I think these, whatever sir said, most of the things will get completed before we complete our term. But you all will be inside that, part of the team which will be making those changes. And once again, thank you, sir, for giving this wonderful lecture and also answering the questions. Let me take this opportunity to thank Chancellor, Vice Chancellor Shri Vaidya for arranging this lecture, and also the faculty members, staff and students of Shastra University, who are all for arranging this lecture and making this evening in memory of Shri late V. Narayanan. And also all of you for being part of this wonderful evening, and I also thank media for being part of this. So once again, on my own behalf, let me express my thanks to all of you and Shri B.R. Subramaniam sir for making this lecture a grand success. Thank you all. Thank you.
I would now request everyone to rise up for the national anthem.